Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. I am back with 101 more questions of the AIMS and INI-CT PYQ series, and today's topic is hepatobiliary system, which is one of the most important topic under the surgery section of the GIT. So today we will do 12 topics under this section, and all these are very important because more questions are being asked in the INI-CT and NEET PG exam as well. So the first topic is hepatic tumors. 27 questions have been asked in the last 20 years in 21 unique ways. So this makes this topic very important. So the first question is, which of the following cancers rarely metastasize to the liver? See, the most common malignant tumors of the liver is metastatic tumors. And the most common primary malignant tumors of the liver is hepatocellular carcinoma. So among the metastatic tumor, the most common carcinomas to cause primary liver mets are from the GIT tumors. And among that, colon carcinoma is the most common cause. The other causes being the pancreatic carcinoma, stomach carcinoma, lung, breasts and melanomas in the adult population. In the pediatrics, it is neuroblastoma, Wilms and rhabdomyosarcoma. So if we look at the options, colon, breast and melanomas can cause liver mets, but prostate very rarely it can cause. So this is the answer. Now coming to the second question. Consider the following about hepatocellular carcinoma and choose the correct statement. Now hepatocellular carcinoma is a very important topic, and they mainly ask about the management and the risk factors. So let's quickly do these two topics. The most common risk factor is cirrhosis. Second is the chronic liver damage because of the HBV or HCV infection or alcohol or metabolic syndromes like hemochromatosis. Third is obesity, the non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, and the last is non-alcoholic T2 hepatitis. Now these two are very important because number of questions have been asked from this. Now this is the most concise table you can find about its management, and it is very easy to learn as well. See, the first thing we'll do is to divide them into 4 stages. So the last stage, the D, is the terminal stage. Here the treatment is supportive only. Now coming to the stage A to C, we divide it into 4 types. The early, very early, intermediate and advanced carcinomas. See, very early is when it is single and less than 2 cm, when there are multiple but less than 3 in number and less than 3 cm in size. Intermediate when it is confined to the liver, and advanced is when there are invasions, specifically the macrovascular, lymphatics and the surrounding structures. So in the very early we'll do the resection. In the early we'll look if there is any associated disease or not. If not, then transplant. But if there is an associated disease, we can either do the ablation or the transplant. Associated disease like jaundice or increased portal pressure. Now this question has been asked. Intermediate stage that is confined to the liver is the chemoembolization, which is known as TACE. This question has been asked n number of times. And in the advanced lesion, either we can do the transplantation or we can give chemotherapy with sorafenib or lenvatinib. Now this is also an important question. And with this knowledge, let's solve the questions. So the first statement is TACE is used for multinodular lesion. See the intermediate one. So this is right. Lenvatinib is used for lesions less than 3 cm. No, it is for the advanced carcinomas. The incidence of HCC is increasing. Okay, general statement. NASH and NAFLD are the risk factor. I told you. So answer is 1, 3 and 4, not the second one. Next question. The Cunard's classification, the segment 4 of the liver is quadrate lobe. This is very important and very easy. The first one is the caudate lobe. This is quadrate lobe. Now next. Now this question can be done very easily with this table. See, the right hepatic duct drains the segment 5, 6, 7, 8. The left drains into the first, second and fourth, and the second, third and fourth, and the caudate lobe, that is the first one, is drained by both. See, if you had this knowledge, you could have solved this question. The right hepatic duct drains into the first, fifth, and the sixth one. First is being drained by both. Next question, which of the following is false about the hepatic duct? See, if you knew this, answer had been come out. The caudate lobe drains it drains both the left and the right hepatic. Now, the first hepatic duct is formed by umbilical fissure, that is right. The right hepatic duct is formed by the fifth and the eighth, yes, that's right. Left hepatic duct crosses the fourth one, this is also right. So the answer had been this. Next question, which of the following is not a liver capsular plate? See, there are three plates from which liver is formed. It is hilar plate, cystic plate and umbilical plate, and not the portal one. So this is the answer. See, this was a very unique question and you just need to mug this up, not important. Next, auxiliary orthotopic liver transplant is indicated in acute fulminant liver failure of any cause. See, what is orthotopic liver transplant? When the transplant is done at the same anatomical location in another body. If it is done at another location or another anatomical location, it would have been heterotopic, and the example would have been kidney. For example, kidney is transplanted in the iliac fossa. Next, true about hepatocellular carcinoma. See, these are some of the pointers. High incidence in the East Africa and Southeast Asia. Liver transplantation offers only chance of cure in those with irresectable liver disease. Next, liver tumor with propensity to invade the portal and hepatic veins, and that is hepatocellular carcinoma. It can has microvascular, lymphatics and portal tract invasions. The risk factor for cholangiocarcinoma. Now this topic is very, very important and I'll do it in detail, and you just need to mug these up. Chronic typhoid carrier, chronic ulcerative colitis and parasitic infestation specifically with Clonorchis sinensis. Now this spreads via the uncooked or partially cooked fish. Now I'll show you how important that risk factor topic for cholangiocarcinoma was. Which of the following most significantly increase the risk of hepatocellular carcinoma? I told you above, hepatitis B and C virus. Organism associated with fish consumption that also causes carcinoma of gallbladder. Now this question has been repeatedly asked post 2011 and the answer is Clonorchis sinensis. A patient presents to you with features of biliary obstruction, gave a history of consumption of fish. Which of the following is probable etiology? Clonorchis. Organism associated with fish consumption and causing carcinoma gallbladder is Clonorchis sinensis. Laparoscopic cholecystectomy done with biopsy reports of adenocarcinoma with invasion of muscular layer. CT is normal. Further treatment is, see, if it is invading the muscular layer, it is somewhat between the T1A and the T1B stage. So we'll do the wedge hepatic resection with lymph node dissection. Next, modalities of therapy for the HCC. So what all can be done? See, percutaneous acetic acid you can do for in ablation therapies. Radiofrequency ablation can be done. TACE, attended the chemoembolization for the intermediate stage. This, so see, you can see this was a question which was asked post pre 2011 and this question was repeated in the recent time as well. So how important the last 20 years PYQ for the AIIMS paper and also for the NEET exam. One more pointer about the HCC. The liver tumor with propensity to invade the portal and hepatic vein is hepatocellular. Another 40-year female patient undergone cholecystectomy. 100 ml of bile output from the drain kept in the gallbladder bed on first post-op day. On examination, afebrile and icteric. The abdomen is soft and bowel sounds of normal. What is the advice? See, here there is no complication or leak present. So what we'll do is we'll go for clinical observation. Now I'll teach you the bile duct injuries in cholecystectomy in detail. An old question, AFP is increased in hepatoblastoma. AFP is also the tumor marker for HCC. Hepatic lesion diagnosed with high accuracy using the nuclear imaging is focal nodular hyperplasia. A one-liner. Risk factors for carcinoma: typhoid carrier, adenomatous polyp and choledochal cyst repeated. Now I have put certain my own notes about the hepatocellular carcinoma and cholangiocarcinoma because these are the most important topic. So some of the pointers like investigation of choice is triple phase CT that helps to differentiate between the HCC and metastasis. And this I have told you. The one thing that I want to teach you is the Child-Pugh classification and how do we treat it. See, if it is A, we'll go for resection, but if it is B or C, we'll go for both resection or transplant. Now, there is a criteria. If the functional reserve is more than 25, we'll go for resection. But if it is less than 25, we'll look for the Milan criteria. If it is met, then we'll do transplant, and if not, then we'll go for the Nomura procedure. Now you can pause the video and look at the Nomura technique and the Milan criteria, or you can go through your notes. Now some more pointers. The alpha fetoprotein is a tumor marker for hepatic carcinoma. Now these are the prognostic indicators for HCC, the BCLC staging, OCUDA and the CLIP. Now this is very important topic which can be a potential question. The fibrolamellar variant of hepatocellular carcinoma, female are more prone, young females, non-cirrhotic liver and good prognosis. Hepatocellular carcinoma has poor prognosis, and here the tumor marker is not alpha fetoprotein, it is neurotensin B. Now let's come to the next topic which is equally important, the bladder cancer or the cholangiocarcinoma. 14 questions have been asked in 10 different ways. See, what is true about the gallbladder carcinoma? See, all I need you to do is to learn this. The late features are lump, jaundice and anorexia. Now with this you can solve the first three options. The palpable abdominal lump is the earliest sign, no. Earliest sign is jaundice, no. The clinical presentation of gallstones can be distinguishable from the gallbladder carcinoma, no. They are both same under the clinical presentation. And the median age of survival is 6 months. Now this is very important because cholangiocarcinomas and the gallbladder carcinomas have very poor prognosis. The average survival rate is only 4 to 6 months. Now I'll tell you something about the gallbladder carcinoma because this is very important. Most common pathological type is adenocarcinoma. Risk factors are gallstones, salmonella typhoid, abnormal pancreatic biliary duct junctions, GB polyps more than 1 centimeter and porcine gallbladder. What is not a risk factor is adenomyomatosis and strawberry gallbladder or cholesterolosis. Now investigation of choice is the CECT for staging, but otherwise the investigation for early lesion is MRCP. So just look at these points. Now the management, the most important. See, T1 is A divided into A and B, above muscle layer and muscle layer involved. T2 is perimuscular connective tissue. T3 is duodenum and stomach, and T4 is portal vein and hepatic artery. Now the management, the T1A will do simple cholecystectomy. In T1B, T2 and T3 will do radical cholecystectomy. Now this has been asked multiple times, where we remove gallbladder, lymph node, segment 4B and 5 of the liver and CBD also. And then we give the chemo. And in the T4 stage, we only give the chemo. So let's look at this question. 40-year-old female undergone cholecystectomy, has 3 centimeter adenocarcinoma in the body of gallbladder, infiltrating up to the serosa. Further management, so radial cholecystectomy. Organism is Clonorchis sinensis. The most common site of cholangiocarcinoma is the hilum. In a male after laparoscopic cholecystectomy, specimen is sent for histopathology which shows the carcinoma gallbladder stage 1A. Appropriate, I told you, for 1A conservative or management with follow-up or normal cholecystectomy. For T1B to T3 we do the radical cholecystectomy, and for T4 either chemo or palliative management. Now here one thing is important is what is this excision of all port sites. See, this is just a simple step which is done for staging purpose to identify the M1 disease here. So it has no other potential therapeutic benefit. Survival in unresectable carcinoma of gallbladder is 4 to 6 months. Another very important topic, cholangiocarcinoma. See, the most common site is hilum, this one. The confluence is known as Klatskin's tumor. Diagnosis is MRCP and staging is PET-CT, just like gallbladder carcinoma. Now here also management is important. If the disease is localized, then we divide it into 3 parts, whether it is of distal section or of the middle section or of the upper section. So if it is distal, we'll do the Whipple's. If it is middle, we do the resection and anastomosis. And if it is the upper part here, okay, then we do hepaticojejunostomy. And if it is at the junction, that is the hilum, which is the most common site, we do the Kasai's procedure and followed by the chemotherapy. Now another very important topic, but this is more of a pediatric question. A condition requires a surgery depicted in the image. Which of the following is usually associated with this condition except? See, this is portoenterostomy procedure which is done for the extrahepatic biliary atresia. Sometimes it is also done for the carcinomas. So the associated anomalies, since it most commonly occurs in the children as a congenital defect. So these are cardiac lesions, polysplenia, cystitis inversus, absent vena cava and preduodenal portal vein. Absent kidney has no association with this. So the options had absent kidney, which was a wrong question. Now next question, the following procedure is performed for the management of, see, they are removing the duodenum, the bile duct, the head of the pancreas and complete duodenum till the proximal part of jejunum, and then they are re-anastomosing them. So this is distal cholangiocarcinoma. You can see the carcinoma here near the head of the pancreas. Now another very important topic, cholecystectomy. 11 questions have been asked till now. So the middle-aged patient present with complaint of right hypochondrial pain. On X-ray, elevated right hemidiaphragm was seen. All the following are the possible diagnosis except. See, what can be the causes for raised hemidiaphragm or the right, specifically the right-sided? See, the causes can be divided into above diaphragm, diaphragm and below diaphragm. So the above diaphragm can be because of the decreased lung volume caused by atelectasia or lobectomy or pulmonary hypoplasia. And for the diaphragm, it can be specifically because of the phrenic nerve palsy or because of diaphragmatic eventuration. Below the diaphragm, it can be because of abdominal tumor, any kind of abscess which can cause enlargement of the liver, like subphrenic abscess or liver abscesses, both amoebic as well as pyogenic. See, the only option wrong here was acute cholecystitis because here no enlargement of the liver is seen. Now this acute cholecystitis is also a very important topic. Questions have been asked on this, and these marked points are very important. Presence of gallstone, thickening of the gallbladder more than 4 mm, pericholecystitic fluid, and on sonography Murphy's sign. That is, when you touch the sonographic probe to the site of gallbladder, there will be a focal tenderness. Investigation of choice is ultrasound. It helps to diagnose the acute cholecystitis, and HIDA scan is the gold standard. So you do the non-invasive or the easy ones first. This was also a one-liner. The indication for cholecystectomy, the answer was 60 years female with large gallbladder polyp. You will not do it for any gallstone or that also 70 years old, and if it is causing mild symptoms, and even children. Now initial investigation of choice for a post cholecystectomy biliary stricture. See, I'll show you a table where I will be telling about the investigation of choice for different types of gallbladder and CBD issues. So for biliary stricture, the investigation of choice is MRCP, but the initial investigation we'll do is CT scan. See, CT scan will tell you about the anatomical deviations. Now bile duct injury is a very, very important topic, specifically in the recent year. So some pointers, and also I'll do it in detail. Incidence following open cholecystectomy is only 0.2 to 0.3%, but in case of laparoscopy, it is more, 3 times higher. So untreated cases may develop secondary biliary cirrhosis. So if not treated, it can cause that. Another very important pointer and a one-liner, like treatment of choice for mucocele of the gallbladder is cholecystectomy. A patient underwent laparoscopic cholecystectomy and drain tube was removed first post-operative day, and on third day she came back with febrile condition. On ultrasonographic examination, 5x5 collection in the subhepatic space was seen. So the diagnosis here was the bile duct injury. So what is the best step? See, in a bile duct injury, the symptoms are fever, jaundice, abdominal pain or bile leak. Investigations you can do is ultrasound and ERCP. Now, the first thing you will do is percutaneous drainage of periportal fluid collection followed by parenteral antibiotics. So the first thing you will do is to put a pigtail catheter, so that you want the inflammation to subside. Second, then you will do MRCP and ERCP, and then you will do the surgery for correcting it. Now these are the two important the topics for this subtopic for this topic, and just memorize them. In the recent time 4 to 5 question times this question has been asked. Investigation ultrasound is the first investigation is ultrasound. Okay, the investigation of choice is ERCP. Okay, gold standard is HIDA scan, and for anatomical information you can an additional do CT scan. See, MRCP will be able to identify the fluid or the leak, but it won't be able to identify the cause. So that is mostly avoided here, and this is the only condition where one of the conditions where ERCP is investigation of choice. Normally MRCP is done for other conditions. Now management of bile duct injury. See, post-op leak, first you will do is ultrasound. So mostly they give that in the question that ultrasound has already been done, and then they ask for the next step. See, you will look at the time period when the patient presents to the hospital. If he is presenting in 48 hours, then you will do re-exploration and repair. And if he presents after 48 hours, which is mostly asked in the question, the first thing you will do is USG guided pigtail insertion, and then you will follow the IV antibiotics, and after that you will do the ERCP and stenting later. So this table is very, very important. So the here answer would have been insert pigtail catheter for drainage. Don't confuse with oral antibiotic. First you will insert the catheter so that the leak can be drained, and then you will start with antibiotic. Now this was a confusing one. Patient with pain in the right upper quadrant, second post-op day, a bile leak was suspected, which is the best investigation. See, you will not do MRCP, which is majorly the investigation of choice for most of the problems in this section. You will here do the ERCP because this is both diagnostic plus therapeutic. So if there is a leak, you will also treat it simultaneously. So ERCP is the best investigation. The first one was ultrasound. Now coming to the next topic, obstructive jaundice. 11 questions have been asked. The first one, which this has been repeated, Charcot's triad is pain, fever and jaundice, and when this is accompanied by hypotension and altered sensorium, it makes it Reynolds pentad. Now the next question is a little bit tricky one, and it was a new when it was asked. In a child, surgery was done for biliary strictures with hepatojejunal anastomosis. Post-op bilirubin level after 2 weeks was 6 mg per deciliter from a preoperative level of 12. So the drop has not been significant. The reason for this could be, the first option is normal lowering of the bilirubin takes time. No, the bilirubin's T half is 4 hours. So, if there would not have been any issue, it should have dropped very significantly. Anastomotic strictures can be, delta bilirubin can be, mistake in the lab technique, not usually. See, the answer here was delta bilirubin. So what is delta bilirubin? When conjugated bilirubin covalently gets bind to the albumin, its T half gets increased to 12 to 14 days. And therefore its reduction is not that significant, and it takes a little bit time. So here the answer would have been delta bilirubin, not anastomotic strictures. Now another very important question, which of the following is not elevated in a child presenting with jaundice, icterus, pruritus and clay colored stool. So this is obstructive jaundice, and the one which is not elevated is glutamate dehydrogenase. Just remember it. The raised one are ALP, 5-nucleotidase and gamma glutamyl transpeptidase. Similar question. Now another very important topic is the difference between the pre-hepatic, hepatic and post-hepatic obstructive jaundice. See, some points which you should look in the questions are unconjugated bilirubin. This is normal, increased actually in pre-hepatic, but it is normal specifically in the obstructive, and the conjugated is raised. Then we will look at the stool color. It is pale color. If it is given in the question, it is pale stool or clay colored stool, it is obstructive jaundice. And then certain markers like ALP, AST and ALT. These are normal in pre-hepatic, but they are increased in post-hepatic, specifically the ALP. And then you will look for the conjugated bilirubin in urine. So this is present here, and splenomegaly is absent here. Very another important topic is urobilinogen. Now this is decreased, because there is an obstruction, so it will not go into the stool. So urobilinogen would be decreased in obstructive. So this, see, two ways to to identify in the question by this urobilinogen and by the clay colored stool specifically, and ALP. So urobilinogen level in obstructive jaundice is due to gallstone will be completely absent. Another very important topic, 50-year-old alcoholic patient with history of waxing and waning jaundice for the past 2 months. His CT examination reveals dilatation of the common bile duct and pancreatic duct. What is the most probable diagnosis of this patient? Now, this is a classical case of periampullary carcinoma. And these are the carcinomas which arise in the vicinity of the ampulla of Vater. The important syndromes associated with these are the FAPs and the HNPCC. These have higher risk of getting it. Now, if in the question you are given that there is a waxing and waning kind of jaundice, okay, and there is pain which is radiating, so the answer would be periampullary carcinoma. And in the CT scan, which is the investigation of choice, you will see the dilatation of the bile duct and the pancreatic duct, and the management would be resection along with chemotherapy or chemoradiotherapy. Now, this is all that has till now been asked, so just don't read more about this. Same question, CBD dilated, okay, waxing waning, obstructive jaundice, pancreas is normal, so the periampullary carcinoma. See, 2 ways, waxing waning and CT scan. Here you have a double duct sign. Again, same question, clay colored stool for 2 months, waxing waning kind of jaundice, and dilated main pancreatic duct and common bile duct, likely periampullary. Now, another very important question, in a patient with obstructive jaundice, what is the possible explanation of a bilirubin level more than 40 or highly raised? So, here the answer could have been all, but the difference was in 1 point, 40. So, the answer here would be renal failure. Why? Because in these 3 conditions, the malignant obstruction, complete obstruction of the common bile duct and liver failure, it would have raised the bilirubin but up to 30 milligram per deciliter. If there is associated renal failure, it won't be able to excrete out the bilirubin, so the level would be more than 40 or 40. So the answer would be renal failure. One of the extra points. 56-year-old patient with obstructive jaundice, distended gallbladder, dilated common bile duct and intrahepatic biliary radicle. CT has similar findings, no additional. Most useful to localize the cause. See, to localize the cause in the hepatobiliary system questions, the best would be the non-invasive technique MRCP. There are 1 or 2 conditions where ERCP is the investigation of choice. Now, next topic is pancreas, from which questions are mostly asked from the tumors of it. So, the most common functional tumor of endocrine pancreas is insulinoma. Now, here insulinoma was not given, so the second most common was gastrinoma, so this was the answer. Now, gastrinoma is also the most common malignant functional endocrine tumor of the pancreas, malignant. Insulinoma is the most commonly located in which part of the pancreas? These are equally distributed, so no particular location. Same question, most common endocrine tumor, insulinoma followed by gastrinoma. Now, why I have given the Zollinger-Ellison syndrome questions here? Because I already covered them in the stomach portion. Because, this insulinoma is associated with Zollinger-Ellison syndrome. So, this question I have done again. Now, some pointers about insulinoma. This is the most common endocrine tumor overall. 90% are benign. Now, this is different from gastrinoma because in gastrinoma, 90% are malignant. Equal male to female ratio of the beta cells. Clinical features is Whipple's triad. Now, Whipple's triad is one-liner, hypoglycemia, blood sugar less than 40 milligram per deciliter, and rapid resolution on giving the glucagon or glucose. Now, C peptide level is to differentiate. Investigation of choice is endoscopic ultrasound. The best way to localize. Management is enucleation. Now, in case it is malignant, then we do the Whipple's surgery along with chemoradiation. Now, in gastrinomas, it gives rise to Zollinger-Ellison. So, sorry, above it was gastrinoma. Now, G cells are involved. Pancreatic endocrine tumor in Menvin syndrome, very common, and 90% are malignant. And the site is, most common site is D1. And for insulinoma, no such site. And serum gastrin levels should be measured. Pause the video to study the topic or do from your notes. Management is for malignant Whipple surgery, since 90% of them are malignant, and along with chemotherapy with streptozotocin. And in meds we can give the octreotide as well. Now these are about others, you read it on your own by pausing the video. Now another about the periampullary carcinoma, which I have already done. That knowledge was sufficient. You can read with the PDF as well. Now this is all about the surgery that I told you earlier. So here, we'll cut all these sections and make the anastomosis. Now next very important topic, gallstones. Yes, CBD stones. 12 questions have been asked in 9 unique ways. So specifically about the CBD stones you need to do. See, a very important table about this is the post-operative if CBD stones occur. So if it occurs within 2 years, these are known as retained, and if it occurs after 2 years, it is known as recurrent. And in both of them, the management is you will do the ERCP and you will retrieve the stones using the Dormie's basket. Now, if the stone is less than 1.5 mm, do the sphincterectomy, and if it is more than 1.5 mm, do the supraduodenal choledochotomy. Now, this is the crisp or the concise material of all the types of investigations you are going to do in this topic. See, investigation of choice for gallstone is ultrasound, CBD stone is MRCP, microliths is endoscopic ultrasound, and the gold standard is ERCP. But first you prefer MRCP. The investigation of choice for CBD stricture is MRCP. I showed you this question above. Now this is also an important topic. What you do, when during the laparoscopic surgery you found stones in the CBD. A surgeon with less experience of laparoscopic cholecystectomy while doing the laparoscopic surgery found some stones in the common bile duct. What should he ideally do? See, if he has less experience, which is written, he should make the open CBD exploration and not do it laparoscopically. Bile duct injury is very prone, or other complications are common. So in other options, it was not the answer, not the correct one. So this is the answer. Now this is another very important points. See, in case if the surgeon knows about surgery that stones are present in the gallbladder or CBD, what we do is we do the ERCP and remove the CBD followed by cholecystectomy. In second scenario, if the surgeon comes to know about the CBD stone during the surgery, now what we do is we are doing lap cholecystectomy, then we'll go for the lap exploration of the CBD. If the stones are found, and then we remove it, but if the less experience is there, so do the open CBD exploration and then put the T-tube. After that, put the T-tube for 10 to 12 days and then do through the cholecystoscope, remove the stones. This is known as the Burhen's technique. Now this I have explained you above, that if after the surgery if the stone appears, then you will do the ERCP and retrieval using the Dormie's basket. See, here the ERCP complication, the most common is acute pancreatitis. So you will prophylactically give rectal endomethacin. And this I have explained you. Now some pointers. Acalculous cholecystitis can be seen in DHF, enteric fever and leptospirosis. This was asked 2 to 3 times. Next, the true statement about gallstone in the gallbladder. Pigment stones are due to increased extraction of conjugated bilirubin. They are a risk factor for the development of gallbladder carcinoma, and 10% gallstones are radiopaque. You must know in detail about the pigment or the type of stones, because that is most commonly asked in the NEET, not in INICET as such. A 50-year female presents with a history of recurrent episodes of right upper quadrant pain, jaundice, fever, toxic, and BP 90. See, this is, it's like in Pentad, and I told you this is Reynolds Pentad. Intravenous antibiotic should be started because this is a case of cholangitis, inflammation of the CBD. And so the first thing you do is give intravenous antibiotic followed by rehydration, and this is followed by biliary drainage using ERCP and endoscopic sphincterectomy. Now this makes the second question. I told you the most common complication of ERCP is acute pancreatitis. Now just look about the CBD stone, what all type of hints that will be given in the question of this. There will be a gallstone, ALP will be raised, biliary pain will be there, and CBD would be dilated more than 8 mm. So as I told you earlier, the investigation of choice is MRCP, and ERCP is only done, when after that surgeon feels that it needs to be done, or for therapeutic purposes, or it is done in high risk factors like cholangitis or jaundice is present. So then you will do ERCP as the first as the investigation of choice, otherwise MRCP, because it is non-invasive, so it is preferred. Next, a lady presents with abdominal pain. USG reveals multiple gallstones with no wall thickening. Diameter is 12 mm of the CBD. Serum bilirubin is 0.8. ALP is raised and GGT is raised. What is the next best management step? See, first of all, the DD is CBD stone. Since USG has already been done, and I told you the first one is USG, but the investigation of choice is MRCP. Very easy. Now another important topic which is mostly asked in image based form, polyp, gallbladder polyp. Now 3 to 4 times this question have been asked by showing different images. So this was a repeat question twice. So this is actually showing gallbladder polyp, not to be confused with gallbladder carcinoma. I'll show you certain images. See, this is cholesterolosis or strawberry gallbladder. So you can see the strawberry with yellow specks, something like this. This is, these are cholesterol crystals which get deposited. Now this is the gallbladder carcinoma. See, you can see the non-neoplastic gallbladder wall and mucosa, and you can see a solid tan white tumor with central cavitation and all. See, differentiated using seeing the walls and all. Here the walls are normal, see, very normal, see wall. Only a polyp is there. Another image based question, a patient suffering from cholelithiasis underwent cholecystectomy. Image of the specimen is shown below. Which of the following is the correct diagnosis? See, these are certain polyps, multiple polyps. Not to be confused with gallstones. See, in the option, the stone was not given, so answer would have been this. Very localized and multiple. Another important topic, on abdominal ultrasound, gallbladder shows diffuse wall thickening, hyperechoic nodules at neck, and comet tail artifact. If this is in the question, the only diagnosis made is adenomyomatosis. See, on ultrasound you will see the diamond ring sign, the V sign, and the comet tail artifact. A benign condition that cause hyperplastic changes in the walls of the gallbladder. So that would be thick. A very, very important subtopic under the gallbladder polyp are the risk factors. This also defines its management. See, 4 major risk factors: age of the patient more than 60, rapid increase in the size in serial ultrasound, associated gallstone, and the size more than 10 mm. Just remember that. So 2 main types of polyps are there: cholesterol polyps and adenomatous. Cholesterol are the most common, but they are usually small and pedunculated and multiple. Adenomatous polyps are malignant, so they can cause carcinoma gallbladder, and there is a lack of transmural invasion on ultrasound that helps us to differentiate it from the adenocarcinomas of the gallbladder, and these are the risk factors as I mentioned above. Now hepatic scintigraphy I have taken separately because questions have been repeated recently from this. See, look at the HIDA scan. Hepatic scintigraphy is HIDA scan. See, in the normal HIDA scan, you can see the gallbladder, the CBT, and the small bowel taking up this isotope. And in the acute cholecystitis, you will not found any gallbladder, non-filling. See, you can't find the gallbladder that you found here. Okay, this is absent. So this is HIDA scan in acute cholecystitis. So non-visualization of gallbladder in hepatic scintigraphy is suggestive of acute cholecystitis due to gallstone. Now this is a characteristic for acute cholecystitis. I did the acute cholecystitis topic above, and this was one of the points you need to remember. Investigation of choice to rule out the biliary atresia in a 2-month-old child. So here the answer would be hepatic scintigraphy. Now HEDA scan not only talks about the anatomical but also the functional defects. So this is the best one in case of biliary atresia in small children. Now all the following are true about acute cholecystitis except, see, in acute cholecystitis is when the gallbladder thickness is more than 3 mm on ultrasound. There is leukocytosis, inflammatory sign. Murphy's sign positive, I told you above. The preferential visualization of gallbladder in HEDA, no, this is wrong. I told you there will be no visualization. Next very important topic is choledochal cyst. 6 questions have been asked, and this can be done through one simple table. Just remember about the Strasburg's classification. In type A, there is a leak from the cystic duct or minor hepatic duct. In type B, there is only occlusion and no leak. This was a question asked, and type C was also asked in a question where there is right aberrant hepatic duct ka leak. In D, we have the main bile duct, and E, we have hepatic duct, the main hepatic duct. So, the bile duct injuries to the right aberrant posterior sectoral duct with bile leak is type C. And with that, we can do the management also. In type 1, Roxanne-Y hepaticojejunostomy. Type 2, the diverticulum is cut and repair the CBD. Third, we do the ERCP, sphincterotomy and ablation of normal mucosa. In 4A and 5, we will do the transplant of the liver, and in 4B, we will do the Cassay's operation, the potoenterostomy. The image was shown, remember? Now, this is actually the management for the Todani classification of the cyst. A woman who had undergone cholecystectomy presented 3 days after the surgery with abdominal pain and tachycardia. WBC count was raised, and USG showed fluid collection 5 into 5 right subhepatic space. What is the next management? See, this is a case of the bile leak or the bile duct injury. So I just now told you that you will insert the pigtail catheter, and so this question I have done, so don't need to do it again. Now a very confusing question. 50-year-old female presented with progressive jaundice. Her bilirubin was 4.8 and total was 6.7, and alkaline phosphate was raised. So what is the most probable diagnosis? See, here the answer was jaundice due to choledocholithiasis, and you could have got confused with viral hepatitis and other malignant obstructive jaundice. But remember that in choledocholithiasis jaundice, the levels of bilirubin will be 5 to 15 and ALP would be raised. Right? In malignant obstructive jaundice, it will be more than 20, and in viral hepatitis, it will be, between 5 to 20, but more of the levels raised will be of AST and ALT. And Dubin-Johnson's, this is completely separate. Here, the serum bile levels are normal. Now, another very important topic, that is of the different types of cyst whose management I have told you through the Todani classification. See, one important point here is the 5th type, which is known as Caroli's disease, the complete multiple intrahepatic cysts. Here the sign you see is central dot sign in the CT. So true about choledochal cystis, it is a anomalous junction of the pancreatic and biliary duct. Surgical removal is a treatment of choice, and if rupture, it can cause biliary peritonitis. So that is why this is important to treat. Now we'll do the miscellaneous topics, from which 4 questions, so we will quickly do it. A 40-year-old female presented with jaundice, fever, abdominal pain. She is suspected to have cholangitis. Reynolds pentad is made by, see, I told you the first 4. These make up along with the abdominal pain. So not these. Answer is this. Now very important. Now I will show you some images. Identify the conditions based on the non-contrast CD of a patient given below. See, here you could have got confused with hepatocellular carcinoma, because you can see the calcification is there. Okay. So the answer was, but hydrated cyst. Why? Because look at this. This is the serpentine sign, classical. So this was hydrated cyst. Now the serpentine sign is on the CT scan, so you can look at the classical serpentine sign. On the ultrasound, there are some findings for the hydrated cyst, like the honeycomb appearance. See, multiple cysts. Not multiple cysts, these are multiple septations. Another is cotton ball appearance. Then the water lily. This is USG finding. Don't get confused with the serpentine sign. Now some of the CCTs for the hepatocellular carcinoma. This is also important. See, you can see the homogeneous enhancement in the arterial phase of the IV contrast. See, in the IV arterial phase it will be enhanced, but not in the venous phase. And you can see, these enhancements. Low attenuation. See, you can see low attenuation. Now patient with 8x8 abscess, systemic amebicide given. Now cavity is remaining, but there is nothing in the cavity. 7 days course of luminal and amebicides is given. What is the follow-up? See, it usually takes up to 1 year for this complete removal of this abscess. So you will weekly do the ultrasound for 1 month and then followed by monthly ultrasound for first year. Now this is the treatment protocol. True about hydrated cyst of the lung is it is most common in the lower lobe of the lung. Now the last topic is miscellaneous one, the gut malrotation. A child presents with recurrent abdominal pain and bilious vomiting. Mesenteric widening appendicectomy surgery was done and cutting the Ladd's band. The diagnosis is malrotation. Another question, cecum is found to be placed below the stomach in the midline. Abnormality have taken place with rotation of the gut, so it is malrotation. Now, what is this Ladd's band? These are fibrous bands of peritoneal tissues that connect the cecum to the peritoneum and liver. Now they are associated with intestinal malrotations and they can cause obstruction of the duodenum and other parts of the intestine. Okay, so the treatment is you surgically remove the band and correct the intestinal malrotation. Now with this we have finished this topic, which is very, very important. So you can subscribe to our channel and don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Till then, keep studying. Bye.